Algebra 1, Lesson 52, more on addition of rational expressions with unequal denominators and overall average. So again, rational expressions are, like fraction expressions, and then they're called expressions because we don't exactly have any real numbers in here, or at least not that we're sure of. We're dealing with all letters. Now, when it comes to adding fractions, our rules of fractions don't change. What makes these a little bit more different is these denominators, x and x plus y. So let's go to our work paper, and we'll look at this problem and see how the polynomial in the denominator changes what we might think our answer is going to be. So we have a over x plus b over x plus y. Now, before we can add two fractions or subtract them, we need to have a common denominator, right? And the urge here for almost everyone, it's a very natural urge to look at these two denominators and say, oh, okay, this one's only missing y. I'll just multiply by y over y. And that won't work, because if we were to take x and multiply it by y, we actually get xy, which is not the same number as x plus y, right? We can see that these two are very different. And you'll think about it, if you think about it, you'll notice there's nothing you can actually multiply x by to turn it into x plus y. It just won't work. So what we have to do is we have to think of polynomials in the denominator. That's any unknown separated by a plus or minus sign. We have to think of them will stay the same. So the denominator is just going to be x plus y. And then we don't have any like terms across the numerator, so then we'll just write them all separately as ax plus ay plus bx. I'm a little out of focus there. There we go. So you can see this answer over here is the same answer over here. So I just cut a step. As soon as I figured out what the common denominator was, I went ahead and wrote that on the denominator of my answer. And these are our answers right here. So I'll go ahead and do one more example just to make sure we've got it. Let's find a hard one. Here we go. 52.4. So they want us to add a over b plus c minus x plus d plus m over k. So again, we have to look for our common denominator. Here we have a polynomial in our denominator, so let's just go ahead and put that in parentheses, so we're already thinking of it as a single number. And then this denominator is actually just going to be the number 1. So our common denominator is going to be k parentheses b plus c. Now, what is this this numerator of a going to multiply by? Well, it's going to multiply by k over k. So the first term is just going to be ak. I'll go ahead and put the minus sign. Now the second term, x, is going to have to multiply by the entire denominator. And I'll just go ahead and do that by putting x times k parentheses b plus c. That counts. And then the last one D plus M is going to have to multiply by B plus C. And I'll just go ahead and write that next to each other as well. So I'll go ahead and put parentheses D plus M times parentheses B plus C. Now some of you are noticing that this could be simplified a little more. We could use distributive property here, and we could use FOIL method here, but we're not going to. A lot of the times your book is okay with you not distributing the answers. So sometimes in smaller problems like this, in the first one we did, I went ahead and I distributed up here in this numerator, but you really don't have to in a lot of these problems. The main goal is we want to make sure you understand the concepts of applying fraction rules to algebraic terms. And so we can go ahead and leave our answer just like that. It's very simple, or at least the process is very simple when we don't have to multiply, distribute, or FOIL. And that's our answer for that. Now the second thing we're going to be going over is called overall average. Oop. Overall average is a little bit different than average in that they don't give us all of the information, but that's okay because we don't need all of the information. And you don't want to confuse overall average with the average of the averages. We don't really worry too much about the average of averages. We care a lot about overall average. To explain this to you, I just got to give you an example problem. We'll look at 52.2. They tell us the average of the first 90 numbers was 4. The average of the next 10 numbers was 6. What was the overall average? So, visualize this. What we've got going on here is we have 90 different numbers. All right, so we've got this group of 90 numbers, right? And we're saying that their average is equal to 4. So if we were to add up all 90 of those numbers and then divide them by 90, we would get 4. All right? So this is, all 90 numbers averaged out. Then they tell us the next group is only 10 numbers. So we have a smaller group of 10 numbers, and their average is 6. Now we need to find the overall average. Well, in order to find the overall average, we have to have the value of all 90 of these numbers plus all 10 of these numbers. Now, we don't know what each of these numbers are individually, but if we think about how averaging works, for example, here, we would take the 90 numbers all added up together, number 1 plus number 2 plus number 3, etc., all 90 of them, and we'd divide it by 90, and that would give us the answer, or the average, of 4. So if we want to find out what all the numbers added up together is, all we have to do is multiply 4 by 90. And then same thing with 6. So to find average of the averages, you take your average, you multiply it by the number of numbers involved. 4 times 90 gives me 360. And even though I don't know what all 90 of these numbers are individually, I know they all add up to 360. And same thing with this group of 10. I'll take the average, I'll multiply it by the number of numbers. I get 60. And then even though I don't know what these 10 numbers are, I know that their total amount adds up to 60. So now that I've got the total of the 90 and the total of the 10, I'm just going to add those totals up together, which is 360 plus 60 gives me 420. And then I'll go ahead and divide that number by the total number of numbers. So I have a group of 90, a group of 10, the total number of numbers being 100. So that divided by 100 comes out to 4.2. And that is the average of the averages. So when you're doing average of the averages, take the average, multiply it by the number of members in the group, then add those totals up together, and then divide by the total number of numbers in all groups. That's it for today's lesson. If you have any question, let me know on Moodle, and I will see you in class.